Boss Rush 660 day 4. So this one's actually a pretty good farming day. We've got Whatley as the first boss, and then everything after that is killable with a 250 damage artillery strike. The second boss is also Neeru, who can be killed pretty easily with a lot of these comps, even if you miss your artillery strike. So if you choose to not kill your other mercenaries off, you do have some options there to go ahead and kill Neeru as well. He pretty much just shoots you with a fire anomaly worth of damage every turn, and you can just AoE him down pretty quickly. So there's a couple different approaches to dealing with Whatley. There's an amalgamation that shoots you with lightning bolts and does turnabout strikes, and then it also has a 4-speed melee attack, the Wingbeat Medley. And then there's an orc that also does turnabout strikes and otherwise just like uses a taunt or something that does basically nothing. So you're mostly looking at preventing these turnabout strikes, the 4-speed melee attack, and then can you survive the lightning bolts. So the two different ways, or kind of three different ways to deal with that. One of them is to use Arfus and then spam roots with Khadgar. So you can use an Arfus Elise Khadgar comp to do that, or Arfus Khadgar something, and then bring your artillery strike mercenaries, and then you can use various other mercenaries to deal damage in this slot here. Another option is to use the Balinda Holmes combo to double freeze, so you don't actually have to freeze Whatley, because he just summons a bunch of low health guys that you can trivially AoE away. So you really just need to freeze the Amalgam and the Orc. So you can do that on turn 1, and then just do bounces, and then ramp damage, or use Geddon to burn them down after you freeze them with those bounces. And then the third option is to say screw it to all of that, just let the lightning bolts shoot you, and just try to block the incoming melee hits the best you can, and hope that you have enough stats to make it through. So that's what this comp here does. And this comp is actually pretty good for farming if you have a very big Genn, Geddon, and Medivh. You can also lower the boss rush level to farm. So some people on the Discord were saying they were farming at like 500 instead of 660 using this comp, because that's where they had enough damage with their Geddon and enough stats with their Mage Guard and Genn to survive the incoming damage. So I'm going to go ahead and show the Holmes Varden comp first. Oh, actually, let me show the equipment here before we jump in. So for this comp, we're using Arena Contender, 8 up front, Lesser Water Elemental, Band of Frost, Gilnean Strength, and I like using the Scout Spyglass because it allows you to AoE down those Whatley summons at the end. But you could use the Swashbuckling Sash instead to ramp your Roger's attack more instead of doing those AoEs. Or you could even use the ship spell if you want to be able to slow things down that the enemies are doing. So let me go ahead and jump in with this one. This one seems to be the most reliable way to do the fight, although there's a little bit of RNG. So Whatley will usually summon additional adds with his 8-speed ability, but sometimes he doesn't. And if he doesn't, then you don't get a free cold snap with your Varden. So we'll see what happens here, but you might need some higher stats. So if he uses this, that's good for the Varden comp. So you just bounce here, and then you swing at this guy, and then this can just put some frost weakness. It's usually best to put it on the Amalgam, because you want to get rid of that so it can't shoot these lightning bolts at you. But if he doesn't do this, then your ramp is kind of limited to whatever you get from your water elementals, if you don't have those additional summons to cold snap off of. So if your water elemental's not able to survive swings into this Amalgam because it has a high attack anomaly, and you don't have these smaller guys, then you can really slow down your ramp from Varden. So you might need to have a pretty strong Varden to get through those particular outcomes if that happens on your run. And the Geddon comp is basically the same as this, you just use Geddon instead of Varden here. But that gives you less options for freezing, less scaling, and it makes the cleanup more difficult where it's harder to kill off your mercenaries. So what I usually like to do on this turn, all this stuff should be slow enough. I usually just swing here, and then that takes this down to like 25 hit points, and then that's enough for the cold snap to go off. You might need to shoot with your Balinda to assist that, but since I don't, I'm going to ramp some additional frost here. So there's a bunch of frost ramp, and then some more frost ramp. And then once you get everything frozen, and you don't have to freeze Whatley if he's just using his other abilities that basically don't do anything. You don't have to try to get a freeze on him. You can just leave him to do his whatever until he actually does summon. But on these interim turns here, you're going to be building up water elementals that are going to help you if you want to kill off your additional mercenaries here. You do have the option to leave them alive if you don't want the improved artillery strike odds. So it simplifies the fight a lot if you get rid of both of these buffed adds here, so that you have just Whatley left. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And since this water elemental is big enough to survive this hit, I can swing there for some extra ramp, but you don't have to do that. It's not a big deal. And then I'm just shooting a flurry here. You could use an ice lance. It's just more damage overall this way, and we don't really care where the shots go. And as you get these guys lower, you might find another opportunity to get another cold snap while they're frozen.
Do you take me for an
You think that could beat me? Ladies and gentlemen, prepare to be amazed.
Okay, I'm just gonna ramp some more here. And I'm not even going to like do the math on the cold snap because it shouldn't really matter. You could also swing with one of these extra ones. I'm going to go ahead and swing with one since I don't really need 3. Okay, so now we've got Whatley alone here, and this will obviously potentially take you additional turns if you don't have as strong of a Varden or Balinda, but you would have the ability on this turn. You would kind of want to try to focus down one of the adds if at all possible, and then you do have the immunity on Bwonsamdi this turn, and you do have at least one freeze that you could get on the taunt, or if you got rid of the taunt, then you could start freezing the things behind. You don't really need to worry about freezing Whatley at this point, because he doesn't really do much. But you can freeze him, so let's say you wanted to bounce here, you freeze. I don't really want to shoot this, because it would probably kill him, so let's see. Yeah, this would do way too much damage and just kill him. So I can actually just freeze with an Ice Lance, and then we'll do a little bit of damage to him. But now we want to think about killing off our additional mercenaries, so I'm going to do a bounce here, and then we're going to whittle him down a little bit, probably with a Cold Snap. And then we're going to kill off our Bwonsamdi, and then our Balinda and Varden.
Do you take me for an ordinary man?
And you can also use a Binding Contract to get a little bit of extra damage if that gets you to the right breakpoint. Alright, let's see here. So this would do like 800. That's about right. So I'm just going to do that, and then I'm going to shoot my Bwonsamdi here. Okay, and I don't want these to double swing if I shield them, so I'm going to put them towards the outsides, because I don't want them to... end up killing Whatley if I do use them for anything. So I'm just going to put a shield over here, and then we're going to kill off this guy as well. And I'm just going to freeze here again. If you don't freeze this, then you just have to kill the summons that it makes. But you do have to be careful, because if you AoE, then you don't want to kill Whatley prematurely. Now, if you bring Genn out here, keep in mind that your even speeds will heal. So I'm going to go ahead and bring out Rogers first. Okay, so I'm just going to freeze that. And I'm going to kill Varden off first, because Varden doesn't have anything that can damage your own mercenaries. And I don't want to do any additional damage here, because I want Whatley to survive these freezes while I'm finishing my cleanup. And again, you don't have to do this. You could just go to the next fight with these additional mercenaries alive. Alright, so I'm going to swing here. And then again, this would heal with the Genn passive, so I'm just going to use fire here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and let that summon just to demonstrate how you would clean those up if you didn't have enough water elementals laying around, or it took you more turns. So this is where this third equipment on Rogers is really useful. So as you can see here, mine does 46 damage, so it'll crit for 92. So these guys will just die to melee attack from Rogers. You do have to be a little bit careful, because it'll also AoE the Whatley for the same amount. But then we can kill this off, and then we can go ahead and finish Whatley as well. Oh, and also, that's a pirate, and Whatley is also a pirate. So whenever you swing with Rogers with the Skyguard attack, you're immune while attacking. So Rogers is pretty nice for this one. For the artillery strike requirement, you just need 250 damage. So if you have that, you can run Genn Rogers. If you need a different color mercenary, then you could choose to run like a green, because Neeru is blue, Barnes is blue, and then Maestra is also blue. So if you need that additional artillery strike damage, you could replace Rogers, but Rogers is, as you saw there, pretty nice for dealing with the cleanup and everything. And on this fight, he just shoots like a fireball. The run that I actually fought him, it only did like 150 damage, but I imagine there's a pretty large range on that. And then he also has like an Inferno type ability that AoEs for fire damage. So if you do choose to leave mercenaries alive, you can try to freeze some of those if you leave Balinda alive or Varden. Or you can just try to like heal through it with Genn. But he's not too difficult of a fight. And you can also beat Barnes with some of these comps if you leave mercenaries alive. Like the Geddon comps can do it. I imagine the Varden comps can as well. I usually like to kill my mercenaries off though and go for the max artillery strike odds. So pretty good farming day since everything is artillery strikeable. It's mostly just deciding how do you want to deal with the first encounter. So the Geddon comp is basically the same thing, except you just do Infernos instead of all the Varden stuff. And obviously, as with every Geddon comp, the size of your Geddon determines how effective that is. So it's the exact same opener, you just are freezing the guys on the side. Everything that comes out of Whatley doesn't matter because it dies to Inferno. So this comp would use Arena Contender, 8 up front, Lesser Water Elemental, Mark of Conflag, Gilnean Strength, and again here this is kind of your choice on Rogers. I do like the Scout Spyglass. especially if you are going to try to kill off your non-artillery strike mercenaries. This one is very useful for helping you AoE those summons while your Genn or whoever else is shooting your other mercenaries. I'm not actually going to demonstrate that comp though, because it's basically the same thing as the Varden one, but it's even more straightforward. It's just, you know, you freeze the ads and then you just Geddon until everything dies. But I will show this Elise comp here. So in this comp, we're using Downward Dog on Arfus, Monkey's Paw on Elise, Bitter Chill on Khadgar, and then I've got Lokholar in this slot using the Icy Focus equipment because this Hailstorm works pretty well with Monkey's spell power because you're getting 10 shots from a Hailstorm. But this slot, you could use basically any damage dealer. I've seen people use Geddon in this slot. People have used Medivh in this slot. Medivh's kind of nice. He's like a safer option because he can taunt for you. And he can also prevent you from getting color swapped by the turnabout strikes by providing those taunts. And he also summons birds, which will ramp and also benefit from the monkey spell power and generate additional summons on the board to give you more spell power from the monkey, since it gives you spell power per character on your side of the board. You can also just not run an additional damage dealer here and just run all artillery strike mercenaries and just bring out like Genn to pair with your Elise and Khadgar if they're strong enough. And that one might even need like certain anomaly rolls with like high nature damage and bad ability RNG. You might struggle a little bit with that comp. But then we're also using Gilnean Strength on Genn. And again, I like the Scout Spyglass here. One problem with this comp is that you don't really have great protection for Elise because you don't have a freeze with this comp. Oh, some people also run Balinda in that Lokholar slot, which gives you at least one freeze, maybe two, depending on the attack anomaly on that amalgam. But you could also run Varden in that slot for some additional scaling if Whatley summons stuff. Let me just jump into it here. But the problem is that Elise can just get nuked by the lightning bolts from the amalgam on the early turns before you even get your monkey out. And you don't really have anything to protect against that. It's also possible, depending on what they do and what their anomalies are, and what your stats are, that you might have trouble killing your Arfus off. Like in my case, whenever I cast my Hearthfire, it makes this guy a little bit bigger than this guy. So whenever I swing into this, if this doesn't taunt, if it doesn't use a taunt on turn 1, then sometimes my Arfus can have trouble getting killed here. Oh, and this thing here also buffs this because it's a beast. So this is going to get buffed. It's going to get buffed by Hearthfire. It's going to swing here, and it's going to survive with like 6 hit points or something. But you just root on turn 1 in Hearthfire, and you're trying to get your Arfus killed off. And in my experience, this Lightning Bolt usually shoots Arfus. Okay, so that's an example of why this comp is not always safe. And that's going to depend on like what is the total hit points of your Arfus and your Elise, what are their relative hit points, because that determines how the AI targets. So my Elise here is actually lower hit point, or I think because of the buffs, Arfus ends up like higher HP than Elise or something. Anyway, it causes some weirdness with the targeting. And I think the AI might try to kill the highest hit points enemy that it can one-shot. So then it depends on like how big is the nature anomaly, and it just gets a little bit complicated. But generally, I just kind of like run at it and see what happens. So we got a pretty high nature anomaly again here. Oh yeah, so my Arfus is higher hit points. I thought he was than my Elise. It's because of the monkey's paw. It doesn't display on that other screen. So I think this lightning bolt will shoot this Arfus. I can swing here to ensure the Arfus dies, but this lightning bolt would kill my Elise. So I'm actually going to not swing with Arfus and just hope that the lightning bolt shoots him. This is one of the problems with this comp. Okay. This didn't happen in my earlier testing, so... I think I'm just getting really unfortunate nature anomalies. That are mostly problematic because of the ratio of my Elise to Arfus hit points. But I don't really want to invest more in my Elise right now, so I'm just going to keep running it back a little bit here until we get a decent roll. Now, another option that you would have would be to try to do something to freeze the lightning bolt. You can also just get lucky and have this guy not cast a lightning bolt on turn 1. He can use a turnabout strike instead. So there, he's doing that this time. So here's a better example. We did not get the taunt here, though, so I'm probably going to still have trouble killing my Arfus off. I didn't see what okay, so Whatley didn't cast the buff ability this time, so my Arfus was able to die. So now we still kind of have to hope that this doesn't just like shoot lightning bolts and kill our Elise before we get our monkey out here. And I usually, on this turn, you don't have any spell damage yet, so I usually just put some frost weakness on that guy. These small summoned amalgams can also cast the lightning bolts, and they will be boosted by the anomaly, so you want to be a little bit careful of that. But now we've got our monkey out, so now we can get these bigger hailstorms going. Now, depending on how strong you are, you might only have time to use one monkey, but if your damage is lower, you might want to keep Elise around long enough to get a second monkey out as well. So I'll go ahead and keep her around for now. You can just swing with her at any time when you're ready to get rid of her. So obviously Lokholar would benefit from there being more summons in play here to fill the board up and get more spell power. But this does pretty good damage even without it. And this comp also doesn't have anything to protect you from the color swaps, so you're just kind of at the mercy of what they do with your turnabout strikes in terms of what color your units are. Because rooting doesn't prevent those. We did get a blue Lokholar here though, which is good for damage. So this should kill both the ads, most likely. And then at this point, again, you can choose, do you want to kill mercenaries off, or do you want to just go ahead and push forward and potentially fight Neeru. So I'm going to go ahead and kill my Elise off. Snowball also can shoot your own mercenaries, so that one's pretty good there. I'm just going to shoot this at Khadgar as well. I'm going to use Genn this time, since Khadgar's Triune Supremacy never heals, unless he's slowed by an odd amount or something. So we're going to shoot at him, and let's see. I want to do a little bit more damage here. And I don't want to summon any Genn summons, because that would end up healing our Khadgar. And these should all be slow enough that you can just AoE them. So I'm going to shoot at Khadgar here, and we're going to get rid of our Lokholar. And then we'll shoot another one at Khadgar. Oh, he gained a little bit of health from the Hearthfire, so he'll need one more. So I am getting a little bit close on Whatley there. As you can single target these guys if that's problematic for you, or you can even let them shoot at you. That's fine too. I'm going to shoot the green one with Genn. And I guess I'll just let that guy act because I don't really care. I'm going to kill Lokholar first, actually. Alright, so now we can finish Whatley off. So we'll just shoot here, and then I guess that one will go there, and we'll hit with Rogers. Alright, got another artillery strike. So there are options to do that in like half as many turns without killing your mercenaries off, but then you reduce your artillery strike odds by a significant amount, so then you potentially spend a lot of time doing these next fights. So it's up to you, whichever farming method you prefer, and you can do time comparisons as to which one gives you the most renown per time. I think in most cases killing off your mercenaries, depending on what comp it is, will be more renown efficient, especially with the Varden comps and the monkey comps, because the monkey gives you enough spell power to kill your own mercenaries very quickly, and same thing with the Varden ramp allows your Balinda to kill off your mercenaries pretty quickly. If you're running a Geddon comp though, I think a lot of times you want to just leave Geddon alive because it takes too long to actually kill him off. It ends up taking like 7 or 8 turns of shooting Geddon with Genn, or Genn and Geddon, and then like taking off the turn in between when his heating up ability becomes even, so he doesn't heal himself, and it takes too long. You don't have some kind of spell damage scaling. Okay, and then this last comp, I'm actually going to lower this down a bit to like 500, just as a demonstration so I don't have to keep re-rolling the fight. But this comp here is just trying to maximize artillery strike odds, and you don't really try to kill anyone off, except you kind of just hope that Medivh dies. But you run Gilded Strength, Mark of Conflag, Unstable Runes. I'm using the Scout Spyglass, but you could use whatever. This Dragon's Mark is actually like bugged and doesn't work a lot of the time, so I'm going to switch it to this Dragon Rune Axe. And then I've just got Round of Drinks on Edwin here as an additional artillery strike merc. So the general idea with this is you're basically using your taunt from Medivh to stop them from changing the color of your Geddon. And you do that by either taunting your Genn, or your Medivh, or your counter rune. And this fight is harder if they get high attack anomalies. Like, these are pretty high attack anomalies for 500. And if they both use a melee attack on the first turn, that makes it a lot more difficult. Since they're not doing that, I can just taunt my Genn here. It'll tank this turnabout strike. And we're going to shoot at the amalgam here. Or actually, whichever one you kill first is... it simplifies the fight and makes it a lot easier, so you could put your damage on this one because it's going to die faster to Geddon. And because this guy's using a 2-speed, I don't have to counter myself this turn. So if they both attack, sometimes you'll have to taunt either your rune or your Medivh, and even potentially sacrifice your Medivh. So this turn... Let's see, this does like 640. So I think that might be enough. If you do enough damage, then this won't get its attack off. So let's see. This does 319, so yeah, it's like 638. Okay, so I only do like 701 damage. So I should probably lower my boss rush level a little bit, or level up my Inferno some more. I don't really like investing in Geddon. But I'm just going to shoot at this guy instead. And we'll let the Showstopper be countered. That'll prevent this Turnabout Strike from going off. But this is an example of like your stats with Genn and Geddon, and Medivh for that matter, with your Mage Guard are very important for your ability to operate this comp, because you really want to kill that red ad on that turn, if at all possible, for this to be an efficient farm. Okay, so he's going to Turnabout Strike me again, so that's going to turn whoever gets hit into a neutral. So I don't want my Geddon to get turned into a neutral. I would like this guy to get turned into a red, so I'm actually just going to taunt my Medivh here and let him get changed colors. Okay, and now these guys should all die. And I'm going to summon a bird here. Actually, that's going to heal my Medivh, so maybe I shouldn't have summoned a bird. So here's where a lot of times your Medivh would have just been killed by like melee attacks by now. So you have a choice to either try to kill your Medivh off with this stuff and delay and take extra turns, or you can go ahead and just finish the fight. And if you miss Artillery Strike, you can still like kill the next boss anyway. But it doesn't take too long usually to kill him off. And you can either bring out Voone, which allows you to summon summons with Genn while still fire comboing, or you can bring out Rogers here and just get some swings off. Either one is fine. And you could take the time to kill your Geddon as well, but I think that's not worth it most of the time. So we got a hit here, so there's an example of a quick lower level run, and you would just want to adjust your boss rush level to whatever you can kill that red ad, ideally on that second turn. So it would be 2 crits from Geddon plus 2 shots from Genn. And then you can also use the Medivh for that last little bit sometimes, but other times you'll have to taunt with Medivh on those turns, so you might not be able to spend that time nuking there. Just clicking through the artillery strikes. We got another one. So if you do this this farm with this comp on the max level, you probably need a Baron Geddon that does around 400 damage. You can maybe do it with a little bit less. And again, that's close to as strong as mine. You could be a bit weaker, like maybe like 360, 375-ish HP on your Genn. And you want your Mage Guard on Medivh to be somewhere in the ballpark of like 80 to 100, or even a bit higher than that. Because of some of the breakpoints with the anomaly and everything that you end up facing at max rank at 660. So if you don't have those stats, then as you saw there, so this was a 319 damage Inferno, and it was a couple of damage points short where I had to shoot with my Medivh, so this is probably good for like 490 or 495 at like 320-ish damage Geddon. So you could sort of use that as well as the 400-ish damage for 660 as a little bit of a breakpoints to determine how strong you need to be if you want to attempt to farm with this comp. Good luck on your runs.